It's only 3 minutes till we move to adjournment, though.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. And it's great to be up here tonight to speak to this bill. And let's just get a couple of things out on the table before I start getting the taunts of being a dinosaur and all of this sort of stuff. I myself did stay at home for 4 years at my choice, so I could help raise my children, and I was happily attended mothers' groups and everything like that. And I want to be clear, I'm not talking about kindergarten either. And I come from a long line of working mothers. Indeed, my great-great-aunt taught maths and physics at All Hallows for 50 years and has got a hall named after her. My grandmother was a teacher, had 8 children, 4 before the war, 4 after the war. My mother worked, my wife, my sisters and all that worked. So this is not an attack on working mothers or anything like that. However, I would like to see greater choice in childcare. And one thing I think we've got common ground on here is how expensive childcare is. And I would argue one of the reasons why childcare is so expensive is that there is very little choice or competition in the type of childcare that parents can choose and very little flexibility. So, for example, pretty much now the government pays the childcare centre directly rather than the parent. So that removes the choice that the parent has if they, say, for example, wanted to have an at-home nanny for, say, 3 hours a day rather than 8 hours a day. They're forced to basically pay a full day's childcare. For a lot of shift workers, for example, this just doesn't work because they'll either work early at 6 o'clock in the morning through till 2, or they might work from 2 through till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So it's very difficult to use what I'd call the formalised childcare system if you're a childcare worker. Likewise, if you come from a regional part of Australia where you might have to drive 40 kilometres, you're out in a farm and the nearest town's 40 kilometres away, are you really going to drive into town, spend half an hour, 40 minutes driving into town, then driving back, only then have to waste another hour and a half going back 5 or 6 hours later when you're already on the farm? I mean, farmers, for example, just don't have the time to drop their children off in childcare. And why would they? I mean, I grew up on a farm and I've got great memories of hanging out with my dad in a big old Bedford truck when I was a child. So having said that, however, I did go to kindergarten and my dad was the president of the kindergarten for 4 years before actually going on and being the president of the PNF. So I guess my problem with this bill is it continues the arms race whereby the more we increase childcare subsidies, the higher childcare fees go, and I'm not convinced that parents and the children are getting better outcomes out of it. 20 years ago I think we spent about $500 million on childcare. Today we spend over $10 billion, and I'm not sure that parents get greater choice or greater flexibility in the type of childcare that they get. The other thing I'd like to point out too is that the cost of childcare now for low-income earners hardly makes it worth the low-income earners going to work. I mean, I've got different numbers here, but it looks like it's somewhere between $15,000 to $20,000 per child.
Senator Rennick, could you please resume your seat? You will